Thank you very much, Secretary Lopez. We are very honored to have you here in this conference.
Yes, and I believe everyone is now excited to hear the incredible pitches from the three tech startups. To kick things off, please give it up for our first tech startup, Panublix. Let's watch this.
Panublix is a sourcing platform connecting designers and brands with Philippine tropical textiles and artisan craft. So we also provide digital economy support to rural artisan enterprises, making them ready for the e-commerce market. Panublix actually comes from the Hiligaynon word panublion, which means heritage. That is why we're trying to create this exchange of heritage with crafters, textile makers, and designers, because the whole global fashion and design industry is really looking for sustainability and textiles that won't pollute our environment. And we hope Panublix can be that gateway to provide that opportunity, especially for our rural artisans. It's no longer an option for business to not care and not be mindful of your impact to society.
Wow, that's fantastic work, Panublix. To hear more about them, we have Noreen Bautista, co-founder of Panublix.
Hi Noreen, please share your screen and start whenever you're ready.
Maayong adlaw, good day from Iloilo City. My name is Noreen from Panublix, and we are here to connect designers with tropical textiles and artisan craft through transparent and impactful sourcing. So Panublix comes from the Hiligaynon word panublion, which means heritage. Back in the 19th century, Iloilo was known as the textile capital of the Philippines. There are about 60,000 Iloilo weavers working on hadlon textile, and now there's an estimated 400 weaving enterprises around the country supporting thousands of Filipino artisans. COVID-19 poses a window of opportunity for sustainable fashion. Although the industry was also affected, a lot of trends were accelerated, especially the rising consumer demand for conscious fashion and design. There are three things that conscious fashion customers care about: sustainable materials, ethical sourcing, and a delightful shopping experience. Take consumers like Jackie. She's a young executive and digital savvy, but she's also hungry to express herself with unique style by buying meaningful pieces for her home and wardrobe. Designers like this persona named Diane recognize the need to source unique materials to make her brand attractive for Jackie. But sourcing is a challenge, especially with lockdowns and travel restrictions. On the other hand, Philippine artisans like Elda are located in rural areas. While they could benefit from e-commerce, there's a wide digital gap and steep learning curve for her to do business online. So what if there is a way to connect Elda with Diane so they can create sustainable designs for consumers like Jackie? This is where Panublix comes in. Panublix is a digital sourcing platform giving designers reliable and transparent access to source tropical textiles and artisan craft so they can design for the conscious fashion consumer. We are building a holistic solution across the tropical textile value chain. We are providing direct access to sustainable raw materials and accessibility to reliable artisans. Our base is our sourcing technology and development program designed for rural artisans to be enterprise ready for the digital economy. We are calling this the Panublix Weaving Enterprise Digital Enabler, or PWEDE, which means possible in Filipino. Aside from developing trusted relationships with artisans, this program also aims to put data points to production capacity, costs, and even tracking ESG metrics like income per artisan and carbon footprint in the supply chain. The transparency will also give confidence for both designers and end consumers to visibly see their sustainable impact. Our access to tropical textiles is through our partnership with the DOST Philippine Textile Research Institute. The yarn production facility is located here in Iloilo. That is why we have this competitive advantage with a direct raw material source. It can produce 50 kilograms a day of Philippine natural yarns from cotton, abaca, and pineapple, making this available to textile makers so we can replace the imported polyester they currently use in their weaves. From there, we connect them to our platform and integrate traceability so customers are fully aware of who they are sourcing from. In less than 6 months, we've managed to onboard a total of 15 community enterprises, not just in Iloilo, but also in the provinces of Aklan and Abra in the Cordillera. Our e-commerce store was able to link our communities to over 30 countries, reaching designer customers as far as UK and Italy, and we're currently in talks with designers in France, Spain, and the Netherlands. In just a few months since launching as an idea, we generated over 500,000 in sales, and at least 60% of which went directly to our partners, creating and sustaining at least 50 jobs amidst this pandemic. Our initial revenues will come from the sale of yarns and weaves, but we eventually aim to create product collaborations with designers to showcase more applications of the material. Eventually, this will lead to a catalog of products co-designed by designers and artisans, and it will be offered at panublix.com. This then becomes a platform bringing artisanal fashion brands to the digital economy. The same platform can be taken to other Southeast Asian countries who also have rich heritage. Panublix is designed to be a business that contributes to a circular economy where we move away from the extractive practices of the fashion industry. The key is to develop first the capacity to produce raw materials and weave production. That's why it is being standardized. And we are working with select designers who give us the insights for the foreign market. Solving a systemic problem needs a diverse team. That is why our backgrounds in tech, business, impact, design, and science makes us uniquely positioned to solve this problem. So how can Shell help accelerate this mission? Well, the easiest way is to source from us. If you need corporate gifts like masks for your employees and partners, we can customize this for you. And Shell will actually be among the first companies who will acquire these types of masks as they haven't been released yet in the market. You can also display this in Shell Select stores. If you want to push it further and showcase the power of mobility to support textiles and artisan craft, we can co-create this mobile concept store in Shell stations. This not only gives retail and market access for our artisans, but the store on wheels can also be a micro-fulfillment hub for e-commerce because it makes sense to have a strategic location to coordinate logistics for e-commerce operations. Another opportunity is to support directly our partner communities through our Puede program. This is a holistic program that can enable artisans for the digital economy. And the existing support of Shell already allowed us to onboard 20 communities. But with ₱500,000 more, you can help us connect with 50 more enterprises, making us closer to the goal of 100 communities future-proofed for an innovation-driven economy. So history has shown that previous pandemics gave rise to the Renaissance. Now we hope Panublix will be that gateway to be the Renaissance of sustainable fashion. With your help and support, we hope to achieve that mission. Join us and let's make it happen. Madamo gid nga salamat. Thank you.
Hi, Noreen.
Hi, Ed.
Yeah, just wanted to ask, not sure if I missed it, but can you share to us your business model? Like, what's the revenue sharing among the players between the platform, or that's basically you, and the artisans and the community?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Ed. So, in terms of the raw materials, the yarns, these are sourced directly from the OSTPTRI. So we almost sell it at cost actually. But our value added is when we go forward to the value chain. So when we work with weavers, their usual rate actually is around 300 pesos per meter, and we pay whatever they set. So we actually don't discount. So whatever they set, we just charge a little bit of 40% on top of that for margins. But our goal is actually to get bulk orders. Hence, we're eyeing the export market so we can have volumes for profitability.
Yeah, and then maybe just a follow-up question, like, do you have an estimate of how much is the value of the product sold since you started?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there are two designers right now that we're closely working with, preparing collections for Milan and France. And they're ordering at the very least 100 meters every month for their collections. So actually, we're doing this textile study right now where there's a requirement now for almost 9 tons of cotton and tropical fibers for the European market, which is the biggest biggest importer rather of textiles in the world. So we're actually calculating a serviceable obtainable market of about $7 million, as opposed to actually the $1 trillion. It's just a very small percentage to the global market, but that's already the big market size.
Thanks, Noreen.
Noreen, I also have a question. This is Baste. In terms of, you mentioned that you're getting your stocks from the DOST PTRI, and you mentioned tons and tons, and you're also wanting to expand throughout the Philippines. How are you going to be able to do that? Do they have raw material manufacturing facilities situated in strategic areas?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So the designers we're working with actually care about the sustainability of the material, hence the raw material source of PTRI, there's actually no problem right now with the raw material source because they can produce 50 kilograms a day. And as we speak, there's about 5 tons of inventory actually that it's a nice challenge for us to liquidate that. But we hope that the capacities of the export orders would be able to be sufficient to liquidate that. So, and the designers also care about the hand woven kind of textile because they're very particular now with the fossil fuel intensive production. So right now we're working with actually 4 communities here in Iloilo and standardizing their production capacity. But that is why we hope to reach other communities around the country. It's also our way of transitioning them towards using the fibers or the tropical yarns, as we call them, because at the moment, most of them are actually using polyester made in China. So we hope to transition them to the sustainable and traditional alternative, which is actually what the market also wants.
So DOST PTRI has only one source where they're making all the the raw materials, or are there many places in the Philippines where DOST PTRI makes the raw materials for you?
So the facility is called the Regional Yarn Production and Innovation Center, or RIPIC. This was inaugurated in 2019, and we're actually signing a memorandum of agreement with the USPTRI for us to be the exclusive partner for the facility in Iloilo. The Iloilo facility is the only facility at this moment. I believe there are funds that being lobbied, so more facilities will be established around the country. But for now, the requirements are more than sufficient for the demand at the Iloilo facility.
Okay, noted. Thank you very much.
Hi, Noreen. Ray here. Thank you very much for your presentation earlier. I also have a question with regards to if I'm a potential designer or a weaver, is there an accreditation process that happens before I become part of that community? And and that the second part of the question is, how do you plan to reach out to other, weavers and designers across the country and also globally in encouraging them to be part of this community?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As a matter of fact, we are trying to develop our own criteria, as you say, to make them eligible for our program. And that is actually, we do this in partnership with the public-private partners. So, for example, here in Iloilo, we work closely with the Department of Trade and Industry Negosyo Centers and our local government as well, because they actually have very strong relationships with our weavers. And we don't want to actually duplicate what they're already doing. As a matter of fact, we need them so that the livelihood communities would be more stable. And for us, we can engage when they are already organized and they're ready for the market, and we can already plug in digitization. So for us, it's really important to work with partners. And to your question on how we can scale, we're actually in talks also with many other groups. Some government officials also, like in Mindanao and Cordillera, the livelihood programs, but also foundations and NGOs who are also supporting weaving enterprises in their area. So we're actually keen to work with them because at the end of the day, it's all one economy. So that's our role, our idea po how we could scale to other communities.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I have a question, Noreen. You mentioned the McKinsey State of the Fashion report, and one of the driving trends that is really affecting climate change is fast fashion and just increasing production of fashion items versus repairing them or reusing fashion recommerce. I think in your model is to promote more consumption. Do you feel that is it going against one of the core themes of this program, which is sustainability?
Yeah, we're very conscious about this. As a matter of fact, that's the reason why we also want to put data points to even to the level of the farm if possible, because we do understand our production and even actually everything about our business is actually located near ecosystems. And actually, in terms of SDGs, we're very conscious about the life on water and life on land SDGs. So we do want to, and actually our communities are already doing this. They're actually saying that we have a maximum output because beyond that, it will, well, it's not sustainable for the artisan, but it's also not sustainable for the environment. Like our Aklan weaver, for example, who weaves the pineapple, tells us that this is the maximum amount of pineapple we can source, because more than that, it will already not be sustainable for the environment. So we do also want to make sure that we have those data points in check, so we don't contribute to the overproduction and consumption problem.
Hi, Noreen. How are you? I'm Lorraine from Department of ICT.
Lorraine.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Hear that. I heard someone said that textile industry is a sunset industry. Do you agree? And I have another question. What is the motivation of creating this innovation?
Thank you. Well, it's true. The textile industry, some have even claimed it dead. But because of we're actually, well, first of all, and that could answer the second question, having been born and raised here in Iloilo and learning recently that we have this rich textile heritage in the historical books, actually, and we have the Museum of Philippine Economic History here in Iloilo, the textile industry really boomed here. As a matter of fact, compared to Ilocos, it was actually the affluent Ilonggos who were sustaining the textile industry, and these were being exported in the galleon trade. Actually, the finest textiles right now in Madrid in their anthropology museum are actually from Iloilo. So there's really a rich heritage, and personally, that's my passion, wanting to support that. As opposed to it being a sunset or dead industry, there are truths to that, but there's also opportunity, because the Philippines is still in a catch-up stage, right, in our economy. And the COVID-19 pandemic actually gave an opportunity for us to return back to this, because the whole world has actually slowed down, and even the West is now looking at supply chains that have culture, sustainability embedded in them. And for us at Panublix, that I feel is how the Philippines can play a role in the textile industry, because our heritage is naturally biodiverse, and culture and sustainability is already ingrained. If we could just work in the efficiency of the supply chains, we can actually play a big role in sustainable fashion globally.
Thank you, Noreen.
So madamo gid nga salamat. Thank you to everyone. This has actually been a pleasure for us being part of Shell LiveWire. We learned so much, and it gave us actually the encouragement to pursue this very noble mission. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Noreen, and good luck. Let's now meet our second tech startup, Agro Digital PH. Let's watch this.
We always ask our why. Why are we doing this? We need to focus our eyes on what needs to be done. So our startup is all about empowering farmers and fishers in the communities that they live in. We'd like to focus on e-commerce as well as everything that goes with it, so that we can digitize the entire value chain. So we want the digital food value chain to be more mainstream and gather momentum for the next maybe 3 to 5 years. So we want to have about 400,000 fishers and farmers to be on the system. Persistence and tenacity are key for a sustainable business. If something's not working, then look for another way. If the wall is not breaking, maybe it's actually easier to go around it.
Amazing, amazing initiative. Let's learn more about Agro Digital PH. Let's welcome their CEO, Henry James Season.
Hello, Henry. Please share your screen and start whenever you're ready.
Good day, everyone. My name is Henry James Season. I'm founder and chief farming officer at Agro Digital PH. We're advocates of change and are committed to uplift the lives of food producers through education and establishing a food system that puts a premium on trust and transparency. So the Philippines has 9.5 million farmers and fishers, down from 10.5 million 3 years ago. Yes, folks, we are steadily losing our farmers. Most of our farmers are smallholders, tilling around 2 hectares or less, and live below the government income threshold for poverty that's pegged at around 10,000 pesos a month. The food system that feeds us keeps our farmers poor. Now let this sink in for a bit. Ironically, the people who are tasked to feed this nation are the ones going hungry. So it all boils down to changing the game. Incremental changes to the current food system isn't going to cut it. We strongly believe communities organized as cooperatives or associations are key to setting up food producers for success. More importantly, addressing information gaps and building transparency is key to creating an equitable food system. We are aiming for about 15% of some 11,000 agri-based cooperatives in the country. These are the most receptive to digital and should be easier to onboard on our platform. We decided to take a look at what we can do to realize the most value that's of agri-digital, and that's equipping organized smallholders, the digital solutions to take control of their enterprise. At every step of the value chain, AgroDigital provides a smallholder-centric digital solution where we minimize demand-supply mismatches, reduce spoilage with just-in-time harvest, and trace the sources of food up to the farming plot level. We earn our keep through two business models. Our e-commerce platform takes a commission from consummated transactions, while our producer-related platforms, on the other hand, are billed to cooperatives or associations as monthly utility service fees. For the past 18 months, we have focused on building strong relationships with producers, consumers, and support organizations. We pinpoint the missing blocks and deliberately engage partners who can bring value to the system. The digital way of doing business is not yet for everyone, so we choose our engagement carefully, prioritizing parties who may give us exponential growth in the long run. Our partners have sold around 40 million pesos since we started in March 2020, and our monthly run rate is accelerating at about 2.5 times. From a producer standpoint, the benefits are real. Exploring digital channels expands their income potential, while buyers reap the efficiencies in terms of pricing and availability. International organizations are validating AgroDigital's potential to change the food system, especially when it comes to increasing the incomes of smallholders. This year, at least 3 groups have actually appreciated AgroDigital in its way of doing things. Most of our competitors are focused on final mile, while AgroDigital looks at the value chain in its entirety. And while we see most of these players as competitors, they are also our partners, as some of them leverage our own digital solutions or secure supplies from our producers. We are a service utility designed for others to use, and that perhaps differentiates us from the rest. We would like to work with Shell Foundation in digitizing their farmer and fisher communities. We can run pilots for Rizal and Batangas and eventually perhaps add Cagayan and Bicol. Adding these communities to the agro-digital network expands their market opportunities. Furthermore, with predictable supply comes an ability for Shell's own communities to supply fresh produce to contracted service providers for both employee commissaries and select stores. Finally, we can also open up a marketplace for Shell communities to directly supply their goods to Shell employees. Our management team is made up of seasoned individuals coming from technology, agriculture, and finance. Altogether, AgroDigital is backed up by decades of corporate experience and agri-entrepreneurship that differentiates us from the rest of the agri-tech startups. We see the undeniable synergies of bringing Shell's farming and fishing communities into AgroDigital. Ensuring production that these communities means we can reliably supply Shell's food needs for its business lines and employees. Establishing this realizes an authentic seed-to-fork system that can be piloted and perfected within the confines of Shell and eventually replicated to the market at large. Please partner with us and invest in this new ecosystem. Be part of our story of hope. Again, we are AgroDigital, and we harness the power of digital for the new Filipino farmer.
Hi, Henry. Baste Quiñones here. Yes, I noticed that there's 2 parts that you mentioned about transaction fees and subscriptions and thereabouts. But I was just wondering, in terms of value chain, how does the money get to the farmers and how do they benefit from this exercise? Could you explain that a bit, please?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so the intent is actually for the platform to open markets for farmers and these communities. So the idea there is for AgroDigital. So we do a matching type of activity depending on what our processors and our markets are requiring. Then we open up these markets so that the communities are actually the ones supplying things directly. Now, so one thing that's different with AgroDigital is that we let the buyers understand who are supplying the goods themselves. No? We are not a digital middleman. We buy from communities, and then we're the ones who go into contract. The idea is for the communities, when they're mature enough to handle contracts, they're the ones whom we present directly to our clients. And given that, because we have drastically cut down the various, the chain of sorts, then you can actually price the goods of the goods of these communities higher, while at a certain point wherein the buyers can actually get it at a better price. So that's basically the entirety of the value that we bring to the table.
Yeah, cutting out the middleman.
Cutting out the middleman and training them actually to handle their own business. I think that's it's building capacity, because if you just keep them just as farmers, then they won't be able to fend for themselves. So a lot of our effort really goes into education.
Thank you. Very good.
Yeah, hi, Sir Henry. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Edward here of the OST.
Hi, Edward. Yeah.
Just a follow-up question, anchoring on the question of Sir Baste or Sir Sebastian. I'm trying to understand on the side of the cooperatives, because you have a subscription model for them, right?
That's right.
What's the component of that subscription model? What basically are you digitizing, or what are the main parts?
Okay.
What's the
All right.
package like?
Okay, the entire package. Okay, so there's so the basic package is really the marketplace, which is our data capture for demand. No, so that's where the orders come in. As soon as the demand comes in, there's this platform called agro production that is used by the farming cooperatives to manage how they produce things. So if you're familiar with the concept of a production ERP, it's pretty much the same thing. There's a forecasting, planning, and management module wherein we synchronize the production activities of farmers. Of, let's say, there's a processor that requires 20 kilograms of kalabasa, every week. And in fact, that's what we do for our Nutriban adapters. No, so 20 tons. We assign it for the first week of delivery. We assign to three smallholders. The following week, another 3 would be the ones planting, etc. So that's our way of making sure that the supply is not cut off, and then we don't actually have an oversupply. So that's actually what the cooperative is paying for. It's really more of that subscription to that production ERP.
Yeah, one last question. How's your traction so far? Are you still in Luzon, or do you also have traction in other parts of the country?
Unfortunately, we are kept to Luzon. About 85% of our partners are in Calabarzon. We have started in La Union and Benguet. And then last week, I was in Nueva Ecija. No? Our problem with the rest of the country would be the lockdowns. It's quite tough. No? But but there is interest actually in Region 6 and in Mindanao. So we have some cooperative partners there who really want to explore how they can leverage the network that we have built.
Okay, thank you, Sir Henry.
Thank you.
Hi, Henry. Ray here. Firstly, thanks very much for your presentation earlier. What I like about it is that you actually approach the issue from its totality, trying to develop the entire ecosystem of farming to the end consumer. And I think, as you mentioned, we are not there yet in terms of level of maturity.
We are far.
Particularly,
Yes,
trying to synchronize the production plans with the demand is, I think, very challenging. So I guess my question is, what are the interventions that you are putting in place in your digital application to bridge the gap while we are trying to make the players within the ecosystem more mature in the future?
That's really a great question, and it's something that's always asked. No, um, the technology piece is probably about 25% of the solution. 75% is really managing people, because this is really a change management exercise. And we have actually found out, no, because there's difficulty on farmers adopting, you really need to have a person on the ground to really pound on the fact to use the digital tool sets. So one intervention that we've done is involve the youth of our early adopters. So in San Jose, Batangas, the average age of farmers would be around 52, 53 years old. And they're very stubborn. But having said that, we have a good base of youth volunteers. No? So to make agriculture sexy, what we've done was basically ask these volunteers and match them to the farmers and ask them, you update the digital platform on a weekly basis, we can give you some form of allowance because we can sell them at a higher price and the farmer actually gets more. So we can actually accommodate, these youth volunteers who volunteer and give them a bit of an allowance. And they're the ones who basically do that for us. No, and that's great because all of a sudden we actually encourage the youth to do agriculture. And one way to basically encourage them to do so is that they see that these farmers are really earning money. No, so that's one aspect that we've done. Another one is really we have on our employ community developers who sit with the community maybe for at least 2 months. So wala silang ginagawa, they just stay there and they really connect with the community that they're in charge of. It's a very long haul type of journey, no? In fact, we've divided our audiences into two. One would be the second career farmers who are engineers or teachers and they can be onboarded in 30 days. That's an easier bit. But the ones who are really traditional farmers, and that's the most of our farmers, it's about 90 days. That's our experience. And I think there's no way to go, I mean, there are no shortcuts. You really just have to go through the journey with them.
Thank you.
Hi, Henry. It's Lorraine from Department of ICT.
Hello.
Do you have any control as to the prices of the commodities or the
Yes.
items being sold? And this a follow-up question is, what are your safeguards to ensure that the farmers are not shortchanged?
Okay, that's another great question. So how are prices done? Okay, so 2 years ago, we've started recording prices of goods, especially vegetables. So in this case, throughout that, we have a database of prices and we've come up with a mean price of where that specific band of pricing would be, let's say for eggplant or calabasa. So there's a thin band and year on year, it usually stays within that band. So we say, okay, on average, the price should be at around this point. Now, having said that, because we all know that the prices are manipulated in the market. No? There are a few people who manipulate prices, and like for instance, there's a typhoon up north here where I'm at in Benguet. Even if the typhoon is here, they'll say, oh, the prices are affected in southern Luzon. No, so it's not exactly a reliable metric. So what we've done is actually, as part of our education, we teach our farmers to do a cost plus. What is the true cost of growing tomatoes, for instance? And in Calabarzon, we understand that's about 12 pesos per kilogram. So we already have a benchmark price. So let's say in the summer, if let's say it's 5 pesos, the going rate, all of our institutional buyers still buy at around maybe 15 because they're on contract. No, so that's the beauty of having contracts upfront. We don't shortchange our farmers. And the thing is, we keep them on a band. Like for instance, if we tell our farmers, look, they've bought it at 15 pesos, even if the prices are 5 pesos. When the tomatoes actually prices go to 170, don't sell at 170. You sell it at maybe about 90 or 100 pesos. So basically, these farmers and these consumers, by the way, they understand the concept of fair play.
Quick one from me, Henry. Thank you. Seems like you're doing everything at the same time. It's almost multiple startups, jack of all trade, master of some or none. Versus your competition, who are very focused on a specific portion of the ecosystem, but are very focused. Can you tell me why you've chosen a full ecosystem play, and do you feel that you have enough resources to build all these businesses at the same time?
That's okay. Thank you for the question. So I always get asked why we can't focus. No, the thing is, if we focused on production, on the production leg, it's not as a lucrative area wherein we can sustain our operations, because if you cannot monetize the goods of farmers, then they're not just going to hop on board. So there has to be a monetary incentive for them to really change. So that's the reason why we have to put in a marketplace where institutional buyers, specifically B2B transactions, can actually be onboarded. So that was actually a need. Second, there has to be an appreciation of the entire chain to make it entirely fair. If I were another e-commerce platform and we know all who these people are, I'm basically perpetuating the existing practices. You know, for instance, I see that there's this agritech platform. They were selling at 6 pesos, tomatoes at 6 pesos. I mean, where's the fairness at 6 pesos? Even if, let's say, oh yeah, they earned a couple of pesos there, but it's not entirely fair for farmers. So the thing is, the only way we can do things is really have to effect change from end to end. It's actually a slow process. We understand that, but there's also the beauty of our own ecosystem. We're not on, although we're the startup, we're not alone. So for instance, the National Organic Agri Board has they put their support behind AgroDigital to say when there's a bagsakan for organic, we'll make sure that the platform to use in digitizing bagsakans will be AgroDigital. So we do get help actually from the ecosystem. I mean, this is not our own battle. It just so happens that they're not shareholders of AgroDigital, but really, it's mobilizing people of the same convictions. Okay, thank you very much, dear judges, and thank you to Shell LiveWire. We appreciate this opportunity to share with you our advocacy and our intent to help more farmers. Hopefully, you give us a chance to actually expand our influence and bring the good news, so to speak, of digital to our farmers. Thank you.
That's all for AgroDigital PH. Thank you very much, Henry. Now, here's our last but definitely not the least to present their innovative ideas, our third tech startup, Sachi. Let's watch this.
Our gauge of success is when people make the switch to cassava bags to alternative products, when they're mindful about their waste. That's when we know that we've already made a difference. When we got to talking about the alternatives, about how the solid waste problem in the Philippines contributes to the pollution problem, and that became our guiding principle, is that we have to be true to the sustainability vision that we have, that we're going to truly provide real alternatives that will really break down in nature. Our startup is we're producing cassava bags, but we're doing more than just producing the bags itself. If we provide that alternative material, and if we can work with partners to develop a different end-of-life stream for these compostables, then we'll be able to do even just a small part. We'll be able to take some small steps towards really solving the plastic problem in the Philippines. Focus on the positive values your company will provide. Everything will follow. The challenges that seem unsurmountable, you'll find a way past it, and then you'll be able to achieve your goals.
That's very innovative. We have Prince Ang, the president of Sachi, to tell us more about them.
Hello, Prince. Please share your screen and start whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Prince Ang. I am the CEO and co-founder of Sachi Group Inc., and we're pioneering sustainability and plant-based packaging solutions here in the Philippines. So there are places which we visit only through images because they're too far, they're too out of reach. This image, however, isn't one of them. This is Manila Bay, and this, with other areas of the Philippines which have been ravaged by plastic pollution, rivers, streams, mountains, and even neighborhoods, can be visited by millions of other Filipinos like you and me. We produce around 2,000 tons of plastic annually. 4 out of 10 of these plastic waste is leaked into the environment. So why is it that even with the initiatives that's been happening over the past decades, there doesn't really seem to have been a strong impact in curbing plastic pollution? Well, that's because the solution doesn't really address the problem, because the problem is multifaceted. It's not just a material problem, but we also have to be able to tackle the behavioral aspect and the infrastructure or the system as well. And that's where our solution comes in. So we're not only going to be providing a material, an alternative to plastic, but we're also going to be developing the proper end of life, which can complement our solid waste management infrastructure, and also close the loop later on, having the waste become part of the raw materials for producing the cassava bags. So cassava bags are 100% not biodegradable and compostable. It's safe for the environment. It's non-toxic. It's soluble in hot water, and it degrades in in 2 to 4 weeks without the need for industrial equipment. It also has very similar properties to the traditional plastic, so it feels like plastic and looks like plastic. So as mentioned, among other alternatives, cassava bags are the only one that are truly safe for the environment. It won't harm marine animals. It degrades in 2 to 4 weeks without the need for industrial equipment. And it also doesn't add to the solid waste load. So it doesn't burden the solid waste infrastructure that we have. Um, and we also are developing a community. This is our pilot community in St. John Bosco, Tondo, where we're teaching the community how to compost, and people can bring in their compostables for it to be composted. So we're starting to change the behavioral change where people can actually see where their waste goes and actually start developing the mindset for choosing the right materials. Plastic packaging is slated to grow in the next 5 years and beyond, especially in the APAC region. In the Philippines, we're expecting a target market of $1.2 million by 2025. Since 2019, our partner EcoNest Philippines has actually been growing the cassava bag market 200% year on year. And it's been used and adopted by 400 MSMEs nationwide. It's been used as a soap wrap, a mailer bag, a shopping bag, and a seedling bag. So we're the only company here who's planning to who's manufacturing an alternative, but also developing or tackling the problem holistically. So we're providing a circular solution. We're creating a separate end of life for these products. So these are the founders of Sachi Group Inc. Nikki has actually been identified as one of the Gen T leaders for tomorrow. She and Josh are the ones who established EcoNest Philippines, who has been driving the plant-based packaging solutions. So we have combined experiences in sales, marketing, manufacturing, R&D, and renewable energy. So how can Shell, along with Sachi Group Inc., pioneer sustainability and plant-based packaging solutions? For one, we need someone to drive the change. So start switching to cassava bags, t-shirt bags for retail, segregation bags in the offices and other establishments, seedling bags for partner farms. Next is to drive the change. Allow people to make the switch when they do decide to make the switch to cassava bags, make it available to them through Shell Select outlets nationwide. And finally, empower circularity. So once they make the switch, we need to also provide them with a way to close the loop. So accept dry and clean compostables at Shell stations, which can be composted in partner farms or partner composting sites. So help pioneer sustainability and plant-based packaging solutions with Sachi Group Inc. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Prince, and thank you so
Hi,
much
good
for
afternoon.
thank you for the presentation.
My apologies for the technical
No problem.
difficulties.
Yes. So we'll go ahead and the questions. In terms of the product, so it's still at the moment just the cassava bags. There's not yet any other items or any other plant-based things like bagas.
Not yet.
Or
Right now,
molding
we
and the
want to focus first on the cassava bags first. Then as we master or as we improve the technology, then that's when we move on to different materials.
Okay. And in terms of so you wanting to use the plastic, the cassava bags versus the plastic. So
Yes.
now comes the part about the cost.
Yes.
Obviously
actually,
there's this thing about, okay, it's really nice and all the like there, but what about the cost? How different is it relative to plastic?
well, relative to plastic, it's right now at we're expecting 4 times the cost of plastic at least. But compared to paper, which is about 2 times, usually 1 to 2 times the cost of plastic, but you usually have to double bag. So it becomes almost at par with the other alternatives.
To scale up once there is more recognition and more acceptance coming from the other users of these plastics.
Yeah. So right now, if I'm not mistaken, it's about it depends on the size. In tonnage, it's around I think 60 tons. So it's yeah. In terms of pieces, roughly the medium sized piece is around 200,000 pieces per month. That's only one. So in terms of scaling up, we just have to add additional lines, and we're expecting that by adding more lines, we can leverage economies of scale and really drop the price. So it's more on capital cost. So if adoption increases, we just need to bring in more equipment, and we'll be able to scale pretty quick.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Prince. Edward here.
Hi.
Just a curious question. When you say cassava bags, I hope I'm not able. The purpose of this question is not really for you to
No.
to disclose your IP, but I'm just curious. When you say cassava bag, are you using which part of the cassava are you using? You don't need to specify.
Actually, starch. We're
The
importing
starch.
it right now. The resin we're importing right now from Indonesia. But we hope to also be able to leverage. I know there are papers. Sir, you're from DOST, right? Yeah, we know
Yes,
that
yes.
there are already research locally, and we're hoping that once we establish our R&D arm, we'll also be able to develop by using indigenous materials as well. Not only cassava starch, but hopefully starches from other products and hopefully starch from waste products as well.
Yeah, we actually have an R&D funding, so maybe hopefully in our next cycle you can apply for R&D
I'm waiting
grant.
for the next year.
Yeah, hopefully in January. But just a follow up.
Yeah.
I think you already mentioned that you actually use starch, right, for your cassava. Because I was actually gonna ask if where do you source out your material. So I think that partly answered my earlier question. So you are the ones who manufacture your own do you have a manufacturing line now? And
Yeah, we're actually in the process of acquiring the line.
Okay. And then in terms of the process and the IP, is the process proprietary to you, or have you done any IP application with regard to the process that you have developed?
We actually have a partner in Indonesia who will be conducting the training and also the technology transfer. So the technology isn't purely ours, but we know Econes, our partner, who's been importing the cassava bags. We have limitations in terms of further developing the product. That's why we want to bring it into to develop it locally.
Okay, I think that's it for me. Thanks, Prince. And hope to see you next year in our next cycle.
Yes, I hope so too.
Hi, Prince. It's Lorraine from the Department of ICT.
Hi, Lorraine.
Hi. Can you share to us what are your strategies in ensuring the sustainability of this innovation?
Could you repeat that? I kind of.
Can you share to us your strategies, or what are the things that you were doing to ensure the sustainability of this innovation?
Okay, so as I mentioned in my one of my first slides, we're tackling it at least threefold. or three facets. So the material, the education, or the behavioral aspect, and the systemic issue. So you cannot just provide an alternative material. You have to make sure that it works for the local ecosystem or the local infrastructure, which we have a very big problem with solid waste management. So the product, first of all, degrades naturally in a reasonable amount of time, unlike certain plant-based alternatives, which require industrial composting. So um, even if this ends up in the environment because of the behavioral issues, it will degrade. Um, we've tried composting it. We've already composted it, and it disappears within 4 weeks. So there's the other aspect. We're working with our partners, and we hope to establish more eco sites to educate people on how to compost. So it will hopefully have a multiplier effect that they'll bring not only other compostable packaging materials, but also organic waste, and hopefully will become a secondary stream. And then in the long term, we're hoping to develop the bio as well, and the cassava feedstock, and maybe different starch feedstocks as well. Did that answer your question?
Hi, Prince. Just wanted to ask, once you've composted, is there any negative externalities to the environment in terms of like micro particles and whatnot?
No, because it's completely plant-based, and also the materials to plasticize it are also plant-based and eco-friendly. So yeah, it's completely natural, non-toxic.
Okay, well, I think one of the key pillars of this program is really how do you plan to involve the local community and be able to transfer the skills and whatnot. I'm seeing that a lot of things are shipped from abroad, and that you're probably manufacturing this in some facility. Like, what's a plan to get more local output, local community involvement?
Yes. Okay. So on the downstream side, in terms of the end of life, we're definitely going to be developing more eco sites. So that's why we want also drop off sites for compost, because we want to be able to empower people to switch to more organic products, and be able to also have the opportunity, the infrastructure to be able to do so. So by building eco sites or eco communities, we're going to be developing more education in terms of composting, and if it goes bigger, probably also organic farming. And then on the upstream side, right now, yes, we're importing the resin from Indonesia, but as I mentioned a while ago, we're planning to get some funding from the DOST next year to develop the local resin further. And then if we're not able to 100% utilize the resin, we might be able to at least reduce the usage of imported materials, and use locally manufactured bioresin. Also, so once we move to manufacturing bioresin locally, that will also have to work with partner farms to grow the feedstock required for it. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be part of Shell LiveWIRE. The past 3 months has actually given us a lot to be able to, a lot of knowledge, a lot of people have come in to mentor us and really develop our skills. It allowed us to reevaluate our business and how to make it even stronger, and that's very invaluable to a startup such as ours. And so yeah, we're hoping that we'll also be able to work with not only the teams that have been part of Shell LiveWire, but also Shell moving forward to really pioneer sustainability and plant-based packaging solutions here in the Philippines.